Hi everybody, welcome to the event this evening around the Team GB PhD clusters titled Competitors, Community and Climate. I want to thank you for registering your interest for the event and also for dialing in this evening, so thank you for that. And we are going to be taking questions throughout the event. You will have on your control panel on the right a question section. If you could please just start your question with the project name. So for example, if you're asking a question about the Race to Zero Carbon project, just start it with Race to Zero and we'll be able to direct your questions to the relevant supervisors. You'll get the chance this evening to hear from all of the supervisors for each of the different projects in the different areas, as well as hear from Team GB. So to start with, we'd love to show you a video a little bit more about the PhDs. So I'll hand over to the video.
Postgraduate research is critically important to any university. I think we help Team GB in a number of different ways. We can help them by supporting their events. It gives great, fantastic opportunities for our staff and students to do that. We can help them with research, we can help them with technologies, we've helped them look into the past of the Olympics to bring out their heritage.
The partnership with the University of Hull is really important to Team GB on a number of different levels. Together we are delivering impactful projects, not only that engage students and staff, but make a real impact to the performance of our athletes. Importantly, the PhD projects that we're about to kick off will be a key opportunity for us to show how our partnership can deliver real impact, with the university supporting through the delivery of research and recommendations that will be at the heart of Team GB's strategy.
The project is called Race to Zero, and the idea is to form a carbon audit to understand the carbon footprint of Team GB. So I'm excited to work with Team GB, partly because working with an elite sports team and being involved with the Olympics is exciting in itself. They're able to give us access to their staff and some of their athletes to be able to talk to them and understand their day-to-day activities. So it's quite an interesting area academically to look at.
The project is entitled the Team GB Green to Gold project. The aim of the project is to demonstrate the social impact of the effective use of green spaces in economically disadvantaged areas.
We're really excited about this project because the partnership with Team GB will raise the profile of this important work. We're looking for an enthusiastic graduate of the sport and exercise sciences. If the person has any experience in health psychology, that could be beneficial, but also a person with an interest in the health benefits of physical activity.
Very little research has been conducted on Olympic athletes' experiences of going through the retirement process. One of the key benefits to Team GB is that the research will shed an awful lot of light on the challenges that athletes face as they approach retirement and indeed as they move beyond sport.
A successful candidate will be introduced not only to the networks within the University of Hull and with Team GB, but also the broader sports sociology networks where the dissemination of this research project's findings will take place. This project is also very important because it provides a unique opportunity to fill in some of the gaps that exist in sports science and sports sociology research.
I hope you all enjoyed watching that video and it gave you a bit more information about some of the projects. This event is all for you to ask questions, to hear more about the projects and to find out how to apply as well. So without any further ado, I will pass across to Charlotte Thompson from Team GB.
Thank you, Nicole. Hopefully you can hear me all okay.
Yes, we can.
Perfect, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here this evening with you all. First and foremost, thank you for showing interest and attending this webinar. It's an absolute pleasure to launch the PhDs with the University of Hull. It's a really exciting time for us to do this. And whilst you might be thinking we are absolutely focused on Tokyo, and I can confirm that we are, and we are looking at how we get our team to the Games in a safe and successful manner, we are also strategically looking at what it is that Team GB will do beyond Tokyo, looking out to Paris 2024, LA 2028 and beyond. So it's a really exciting time to launch this cluster of PhD projects and talk about our future vision and ambition, and really excitingly, hopefully have some of you come along the journey with us. It's 72 days until Tokyo for us, so we are absolutely focused on how we best support our athletes and how we take ourselves to the Games. Two of those key focus areas are absolutely intrinsically linked to two of the PhD projects that we will be sharing with you today. The Race to Zero project is a key priority for Team GB going forward. It's absolutely the heart of our business, like many throughout the world. The International Olympic Committee have absolutely set their mission and their vision for how they will tackle sustainability in the wider sporting landscape. But Team GB has a really important part to play in this. We are a leading National Olympic Committee, and we absolutely believe that we should be and we can be a leader in sustainability amongst our sporting peers. So this PhD will absolutely sit at the heart of what we do over the next quad, 4-year cycle as we call it, and beyond. And it's really exciting that we can work with the incredible experts at the University of Hull to understand our footprint, our broader footprint in the United Kingdom and globally, in our attendance at Games and our wider commercial work that we do here in the UK to help bring the team together and take them to the Games. So it's a really exciting opportunity to share this PhD in particular with you, and it will sit at the heart of everything we do for coming cycles. The other aspect around supporting athletes in terms of life beyond sport is another really key strategic priority for us going forward. As you can expect, athletes are completely focused on the Games and the sporting prowess that they hopefully will display in coming months and years. But it's really important that we understand how athletes will transition into life after sport. And this PhD project will provide some incredible insights and enrich existing information within the high performance system that a lot of people will be calling out to understand. So it's really exciting to have someone want to come on board and engage with our stakeholders, engage with our athletes, and understand how we at Team GB can support athletes further on the journey from elite sport and competition to life after sport, whatever that might be for themselves. And then fundamentally, the Green to Gold project also sits at the core of our strategy, in that our ambition is to unite and inspire the nation through the power of Olympic sport. And we have a significant role to play in uniting and inspiring people to be healthy and to have a good understanding of well-being and what that means to have a positive social and physical state of well-being. So the PhD here will also sit fundamentally at the heart of our strategy and how we drive some of our initiatives to further understand how Team GB can inspire individuals to be healthier and inspire communities to understand how they can come together and utilise some of the amazing green spaces that they have to help the well-being of their community. So I won't steal the thunder of the amazing academic leads that we have, but just to say thank you for your interest and thank you for wanting to hear more about the PhDs, and we absolutely look forward to hearing more from individuals along the journey over the course of the next 3 years. I will now hand over to Simon and Nishant to talk about the first project, Race to Zero.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. So my name is Dr. Simon Waldman, and joining me here is Professor Nishant Mishra. We're 2 out of the 3 supervisors for the Race to Zero project. So the next couple of minutes, we'll introduce ourselves and tell you a bit about the project. The aim here, as Charlotte said, is to help Team GB on their road to net zero by helping them understand where their carbon footprint mostly lies at the moment. So it's easy for us to assume that it's going to be in flights to the Olympics, and it might be, but maybe it's actually in marketing activities and fundraising or training activities. So we're going to do a carbon audit to, the postgraduate researcher we recruit, will be leading on doing a carbon audit to understand where it's best for Team GB to make investments on saving carbon. And the idea is that having done that, we can then make some recommendations for them and probably produce some computer-driven tools to help support them operationally in keeping carbon budgets low. And having done all that, we'll then be able to look at what lessons are learned, and having helped Team GB be at the forefront here, we can look at what can be passed on to other sports teams around the world. My background is in renewable energy. I teach on the university's Renewable Energy Masters, and of course, a large part of the carbon footprint is likely to be energy related. Nishant, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about the methods?
Yeah, thanks you, Simon. And my name is Nishant Mishra. I am a professor of logistics and supply chain, and my research interest is low carbon supply chain, process modeling, and development of decision support system. In the past, I have developed several decision support systems, and industry they are using it. In this project, as Simon mentioned, that a student will work closely with Team GB and to increase their understanding of carbon footprint associated with different Olympic activity. We are going to map all their activity, and we are going to measure carbon associated with different activity. We are also planning to develop a data-driven decision support system to minimize the carbon emission. The decision support system will help Team GB to explore policy options and optimize cost-benefit analysis of potential intervention. That means here you can see that the core theme of this project is to help Team GB to understand carbon emission and also help them to minimize it.
Thanks, Nishant. So very briefly, what we're looking for somebody who's enthusiastic and motivated and wants to do this project. You need to be numerate. You need to be able to handle large data sets and process them. But you could come from a very wide range of backgrounds. You might come from a business background or an environment background or a science background. We'll look at all applications. Most importantly, you need to have a real interest and enthusiasm for carbon footprinting and for low carbon transition. If you have an interest in elite sport, that's obviously an advantage. And if there are any retired athletes in the audience, we'd love for you to apply. So please ask some questions. We'll be around at the end to try to answer them. I'll pass on now to our second project, over to John Saxton and Caroline Douglas, who are going to talk about green to gold.
Thanks very much, Simon. That's great. Good evening, everybody. It's great to be here this evening, and there's a bit of echo on that, but thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to tell you about our project. It's called Socially Prescribed Green Space Exercise as a Route to Tackling Health Inequalities in the East Riding of York, the Team GB Green to Gold project. I'm getting a bit of echo on that. I don't know whether you can hear me okay. So you've probably heard quite a lot recently about green space activity, especially in this COVID era that we're in, and how GPs and doctors are now prescribing things like exercise and activities, things like gardening and conservation projects that are out in the open air and that bring lots of health benefits. And it's really great, and it's really timely that we have this project funded, because this region, the region we're in, the East Riding of Yorkshire, Hull, Coast and Vale, it has about 1.7 million people, and about a quarter of that population live in socially disadvantaged areas. And we know from previous research about the health benefits of exercising and activity in natural environments. So this area also has 3 areas of outstanding natural beauty, including green space and blue space areas. And the aim of this project is to understand how we can engage disadvantaged communities in activity in green and blue spaces. And we want to do this because we know it can improve mental health, it can improve physical health, and it can reduce social isolation. So there are many benefits. But what we don't know is how to best engage disadvantaged communities in this type of project. So the project itself will have 4 phases. There will be a systematic review. So the postgraduate researcher will engage with the literature and find out what we already know about the benefits of green space activity and how it can unite communities and bring health benefits. And then the aim is to co-produce an intervention. So working with Team GB, with our community partners, with end users. So we're going to sit around a table and we're going to co-produce. We're going to understand how we can engage communities in green space activity. And then the next stage, once we've designed, co-produced that intervention, we test it. We test it in the region. We test it in these socially disadvantaged communities. And we try and understand how best to implement that, to engage it, and what the health benefits are. But the ultimate aim is to develop a scalable roadmap. So what we learn from this project in our region, with the help of the Team GB partnership, we hope to scale this up nationally. So it's an exemplar of how we can embed or implement green space activity in socially disadvantaged communities throughout England. So that's the nut and bolts of it, really. Really exciting project. We have some great partners, including Team GB, some excellent community partners, which Caroline, my co-supervisor, is now going to talk about.
Okay, thank you, John. Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Caroline Douglas and I'm a sports and exercise psychologist in Shez. And as John outlined, I'll be the co-supervisor on this project. But my day-to-day role is as a project director of a research collaboration between the University of Hull and East Riding of Yorkshire Council to enhance healthy lifestyles and access to wellbeing programmes in the region. So that's why we're thrilled to be working with Team G, because we want to develop a model in Yorkshire of how best to grow green space exercise opportunities that are accessible to everyone and can potentially be rolled out nationwide. And in every area, there's open land, urban parks and public space that people aren't always aware of. For many of you guys and your families during the current pandemic, you'll have been out walking in the local spaces more than you've ever done before, and probably found that being outside has been a great way to maintain your fitness and your mood. And so we really need to build on these experiences and these connections people have made in the environment around them to help them enhance their physical and their mental health. So the project will involve you working with organisations such as Public Health, East Riding of Yorkshire Council and the Humber and East Yorkshire Smile Charity Network to better understand communities in the area and what's actually working really well in those communities. We know that not everyone can afford to join a gym, so we want to develop strategies where Team GB medalists can potentially lead green exercise training programs and sessions. They already train outside, so perhaps they can help us promote facilities and to get people out of the house. You know, come and train with your heroes, help kids educate their parents on healthier lifestyles. So a lot of the plans of the project will actually be determined by the initial systematic you do as the PhD student, and you're exploring the current community projects. So if you're interested in developing healthy lifestyles and behaviour change and having a real population impact, then this is the PhD for you. So I'm going to hand you back to John to tell you a little bit more about the kind of person we're looking for.
Thanks very much, Caroline. I'm not sure if I introduced myself. If I didn't, I'm John Saxton, Professor of Clinical Exercise Physiology, and I'm Head of the Department of Sport Health and Exercise Science at Hull, just in case I forgot. So what we're looking for this project is ideally a recent graduate or a graduate with a 2-1 honours degree or above in the sport and exercise sciences, possibly health psychology, public health or a related discipline. If you have a relevant master's degree, then that would be advantageous potentially. Certainly a keen interest in the health benefits of physical activity would also be an advantage. We're encouraging applicants from retired or retiring athletes, of course, because our partner is Team GB. And this scholarship is available for full-time study only, and is not open to candidates who already have obtained a PhD. So I think that's everything, but we look forward to answering or trying to answer any questions later on. What I'm going to do now is hand you over to Luke, who will tell you about the third project.
Thank you very much, John. And my colleague, Dr. John Toner, is also going to join us. Before we get going on our little section, I'd like to just give you a little bit of a kind of a breakdown of what John and I are going to be talking to you about over the next little while. We're both going to briefly introduce ourselves, and then after that we're going to spend a little bit more time explaining why we are going to be the experts that will be able to help you with this PhD study. So first of all, my name is Dr. Luke Jones. I'm a sports coaching lecturer in the same department as Caroline and John, who were just speaking, here at Hull. And I teach the social cultural aspects of our sports coaching degree program. And I also research as a sports retirement scholar using social cultural theory and predominantly that of Michel Foucault. I'm just going to briefly pass over to John now so you can get to know him a little bit before I come back to talk to you again in a little while.
Hi everyone, I hope you're very well. My name is John Toner. I'm a lecturer in sports coaching and performance science at the University of Hull. One of my areas of research interest is expertise in sport, and I'm particularly interested in exploring how skilled performers go about maintaining high levels of skill over time and how they deal with the various challenges that they face or that they're confronted by over the course of their careers. So that's one of the main areas of research interest I'm in, expertise in sport, which kind of ties in quite nicely with this particular PhD project. So I think I'll hand you back to Luke for the time being. Thank you.
Thanks very much, John. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the specifics of my background and how the supervisory team will be able to really help you engage to the fullest should you apply and be successful for this PhD study. As I mentioned, I've got a background in studying the retirement from sport, but uniquely in many respects, I study it from the social cultural perspective using sports sociology. And for my previous research, I've done some research studies with professional footballers to kind of talk about how they manage their retirement and the challenges that they face, and also the kind of the more positive aspects of their retirement that they often want to share. So the examples of aspects of retirement that I've explored with these individuals include their relationships with exercise, their relationships to their new vocations, some of the issues that they have had with their mental health. So as you can begin to see where my background kind of lends itself nicely to this Life Beyond Sport project that we're really, really excited about working with Team GB. So in a little while, I'm going to talk to you a bit more about the project's specific aims and the kind of nitty-bitty stuff that we're going to do in the project. But I'm just going to invite John again to maybe talk a little bit more about some of the aspects of his background and how he will be a strong part of our co-supervisory team.
Thanks, Luke. Yes, one of my areas of interest, one of the main methodologies I use is a qualitative methodology in exploring athletes' experiences in sport, and that's obviously a key feature of this particular project. So what both Luke and I will do is we'll work really, really closely with the postgraduate student at all stages of the PhD. We'll work very, very closely to ensure that the postgraduate student is really comfortable applying a qualitative methodology, that they're really comfortable applying and using interviews with athletes. We'll work with them very, very closely through that process. So there'll be a number of steps. We'll help the postgraduate student to survey the literature and to identify the specific research questions that we wish to address. We'll help them make sure that they're very comfortable with the data collection process. We'll help them put together interview schedules and conduct pilot interviews. We'll make sure that they're very, very comfortable asking questions in a way that will elicit really detailed and rich insights from the participants that they speak to. We'll help them, beyond that, we'll help them with the analysis process and make sure that they're comfortable analysing and identifying relevant themes.
We'll also work very, very closely with the students to make sure that they're really comfortable and knowledgeable about the theoretical frameworks that they'll use to make sense of and interpret the data that emerges from the interview findings. So I think that's a really, really important point to reiterate, that we're going to work so closely with the students throughout this process. We really want to work very closely with students to develop the successful student as a researcher, and most importantly, perhaps, to make sure that they feel supported and comfortable at every single stage of the research process. That's very, very important. We want to develop you as an independent researcher, but you are going to receive an awful lot of support and help throughout that process, and that's a very important aspect of a PhD as far as we're concerned, in terms of our role as supervisors. So I think I've covered some relevant content.
That's very, very helpful, John. Thank you. And I would like to reiterate that we're really looking forward to really getting to know the researcher and really being very supportive. I'd like to take a little bit of time now to talk a little bit more about the specific aims of the project before we give you the opportunity to ask all of the supervisory teams about the various projects. So I'd just like to say that at the moment, there's still very little is understood about the longer term experiences of retired high performance athletes, including Olympians, and in particular, like how their immersion within elite sport from a very young age, and in particular, the kind of coaching practices or the kind of the strength and conditioning, the developmental practices that are very kind of normalized and common within elite sports settings, how these kind of might influence their lives and what the legacy of being exposed and being within these contexts and environments for very kind of long, intense periods of their life might be for their longer term lifestyles and their longer term experiences as they move into new relationships, into new vocations, into new social contexts. So we're really kind of using this social theory lens to really develop a really strong understanding of that. And that's where it kind of differs a little bit from the vast majority of sports retirement research has been conducted helpfully from a sports psychology lens. But what we're excited about doing is a relatively unique experience of looking at it using Michel Foucault's post-structural ontology and epistemology. So that's kind of what we're very excited about. And we want to kind of move beyond this idea of equipping athletes to cope and survive just by assuming that their retirement's going to be tricky, but we want to kind of go a little bit further than that and identify the key experiences from their career and look at how those experiences might be leading to positive outcomes for their new vocations or for negative implications. So in a nutshell, we're really wanting to map and fully explore the legacy of being an Olympian. And this is a study that's going to be very helpful for Team GB to help them look after these athletes as they move away from their sports, because being an Olympian is for life, and we want to look at what that means. So just quickly, who do we want? We want an enthusiastic researcher who's preferably versed a little in social cultural theory, perhaps through their modules on their undergraduate, or even better through a further master's degree from a sociology background, a sports science background, a pedagogy background. These are the sorts of characters that we would really like to see apply. And even perhaps a retired athlete who is equipped with a degree, who's passionate about their own experiences and wants to continue learning and would have a really kind of unique perspective that would bring to the project. So that's enough from me and John for now, just to give you a little bit of a taster of what we want to do. I would encourage anybody who's got a question that I want to ask all three of the kind of supervisory teams to do so through the chat. And we're going to spend the rest of this time answering a question, having a really healthy Q&A for you guys to get to know what we want to talk to you about and the aspects of the study. So with that, I'm going to invite the lovely Nicole to come back and begin to kind of host the question and answer session. So thanks, John, and Nicole, we're ready to have you come back now.
Hello, hi everybody. I hope you enjoyed the session and heard a lot more about the projects and enjoyed what you heard. Thank you very much for obviously dialing in today and listening to all of the supervisors speak about these brilliant projects. Just wondering if any of you have any questions. We have had a couple of questions, so what I will do is I will read those out, and then the supervisors will answer those for us. So the first question that we have is, it was sent by Jessica Woodward, so thank you for asking a question, Jessica. So this is about the Green to Gold project. So she wanted to know, similarly to the community of learning, sorry, my chat keeps jumping about. similar to the Community of Learning with Sport England LDPs, is there an intention to contribute to community learning with the 6 other green social prescribing pilots who have received part of the £4 million funding? So John and Luke, I wonder if I can invite all the panelists back, but John and Luke, if you could answer, oh sorry, I'm mixing people up. John and Caroline, if you could answer that question, that would be amazing.
Yes, I did write an answer. I don't know if you've received that, but the answer is yes. You're right. The Environment Secretary announced £4 million worth of funding last summer to support a number of test and learn sites, which is to do with the role of green space activity in improving mental health. Now that funding was actually increased to 5.7 million, and the whole Coast and Vale region received a proportion of that money. And there are 6 sub-regions within the region, and each sub-region will have its own particular project. So yes, the answer is yes. We see that this project will align with what's known as the Whole Coast and Vale Green Exercise Prescribing Project in collaboration with our community partners and Team GB. There was another question on this. I'll answer it while I'm on. And it was, is this project based in Hull? Yes, it is. I think someone from Leeds Beckett. This project will be based in Hull and the region, this particular region. And it is the only PhD project that is focused on the green to gold study. There is other work going on with community partners. We envisage further master's level students engaging in some of the work. But this is the only PhD project that's going to be working on green to gold at the present time. Do you want to add anything, Caroline? Okay.
Great, so I'll move on to the other questions that we have as well. So we've got a question about life beyond sport. Is there anything I can do to make my application stand out? I guess that could be to any panelists as well.
I'll take that one if you don't mind, Nicole. So I think the key thing to make your application stand out is to demonstrate that you've got a real passion for the topic of sports retirement in general overall, but specifically if you can talk about any work or activities that you've engaged in that demonstrates your connection to athlete advocacy or an interest in the kind of the futures of athletes and the welfare of athletes, and anything that you might have done through your education, through your undergraduate or postgraduate degrees, or activities with institutions or sports clubs that can really help you explain to the people who will be considering your application that you're connected to this issue in real ways, which would be really helpful. And I think as well, and as well as that, the capacity to demonstrate a grasp of social theory through, as I mentioned previously in my little tidbit there, your ability to use social theory and a kind of familiarity with considering how social theory can help people understand the experiences of people invested within the sports context in any way, shape or form. And also just your enthusiasm, to have that come across would be really important.
I'd just add to that perhaps that most of that applies to all 3 projects, maybe not the social theory part, but of course you need to have the requirements that are listed in the advert, but to distinguish yourself, tell us why you want to do this PhD in particular, and tell us why you're the best person to do it.
Thank you. So we have another question now asking whether you can apply when you're based in India. And I'm going to hand over to Kirsty Skelton-Clark, who is from the Doctoral College, to answer that question for you.
Hi everybody, and thanks for that question. So we are offering a home fee waiver only at this stage. So that means that we feel that should then therefore be open only to home candidates at the moment. The fee waiver is for £4,500, which is the fee for a home postgraduate researcher. So at the moment the applications are only open to home students. Apologies for people who are international students.
Thank you, Kirsty. So we have another question for the Green to Gold project. So will the PhD have potential to link in with the local NHS PCN social prescribers in order to understand current methods of engagement with the public, please?
I don't want to hold the shirt. I think maybe Caroline, do you want to have a go at answering that one? Yeah.
Well, I'll just put my mic on. Absolutely, there is possibility to engage with the social prescribers in the region, but what we're looking for someone to do is really immerse themselves in what's going on in this particular region and the strengths. Because of the social deprivation and the issues going on in this region, we're looking for someone to understand exactly what's going on here, so we could potentially roll it out nationally. So there'll be lots of opportunities to work at the ground level with all the different community projects and grassroots projects and things that already exist. So yes, but if you already have any connections with NHS organisations, that's fantastic to be able to bring that to the table. Anything you want to add to that, John? Or
no, that's pretty thorough. Thank you.
Thank you. And so moving on to some other questions. So will the Life After Sport project also look at other sports or look at different sports? There's a reference to football here, but I think that I'll let you answer, Luke, but it's probably not just applicable to football.
I think that the only way that football would be involved if we were to be connected to some of the kind of female Team GB squad members, but from previous games. But I think there will be a range of sports, hopefully, when we connect with Team GB to liaise with them to help us access their alumni and previous Olympians. So I can't specifically give any answers about the specifics nature of the sports, but I think that will be a work in progress in terms of. But exciting because of the exciting range of sports that Olympians come from, the background. So to answer, I think it was Rob's question specifically about football. I think it won't. No, it might not necessarily involve football, but there will be a range of sports. Charlotte, did you want to add anything there about how that might be?
Thanks, Luke. It's probably worth saying we want this research to be comprehensive, and Team GB is made up of over 30 national governing bodies of summer and winter sports. So it's really important that we're reflective of the athletes within that community. And we'll have professional sports as football, as you referenced, whose athletes are selected very close to the games and represent their team at a games. And then you have individual athletes who are part of sort of an individual sport or a sort of broader individual but a team-based sport. And they will spend 8+ years solely focused on that discipline and that sport, and they have an extremely long journey that they go through. So it's absolutely important that we get a breadth and depth of an athletes, and we will be working with our sporting stakeholders. And I can probably sort of chip off another question that I've seen about will we be working with the English Institute of Sports Performance Lifestyle Advisors? The answer is absolutely. Luke's already linked into that group. They are individuals who are daily connected with athletes who are on that transition program. So we will be working with them hand in hand. They already have research at their fingertips. We are looking at how we can plug gaps and enrich existing research with this PhD. So it's very important for us that we're connected. And probably also to say, we've got athletes who have done PhDs on this very topic, and we are working with them to understand what else we could do to take that research to the next level as well. So we want to make it as comprehensive as possible and look forward to the individual who has the interest and wants to kind of offer suggestions about, based on their knowledge and their research, how we could take this even further.
Thanks, Charlotte. And before I give the other studies an opportunity to answer some of the other questions, there was a question that's related to what Charlotte was asking, and that was a question about whether it will take into account sports psychologists' experiences. This study is not going to be specifically interviewing sports psychologists or support staff, but very importantly, we're really, really keen to find out athletes' responses of their experiences, of their interactions with a range of support staff across their careers. So not only the sports psychologist from a performance perspective, but also well-being, and the English Institute of Sport was mentioned, the lifestyle advisors, but also even things like sports chaplains, a whole range of different relationships that athletes will go through during their careers. And we're really keen to probe those further and further to see how the implications of those relationships as they move on to experience the legacy of their Olympism. But that's enough about life beyond sport for now. I think it's time for some questions for some of the other research programs.
Yeah, no problem. So some of the other questions that we have, I did see one just then for the Race to Zero project. The question here is, I'm really interested in this PhD, but I don't have the most knowledge or experience with carbon audits. Will there be training in this? From Kerry.
Short answer is yes, but Nishant, do you want to give any more detail on that? We can't hear you.
Yeah, like, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, like the most important thing is your motivation. If you are motivated, we will provide you all the training. And if you have some background, that is some age you have compared to other candidate, but and simultaneously also understand that you just completed your undergraduate or master. That's why sometimes you are not familiar with a lot of aspects related to this project, but we will provide you enough training, enough support. Most important thing is motivation. Simon, if you want to add anything.
No, I don't think I can add anything to that. But perhaps, if it's all right, Nicole, I can answer the other question we had at the same time because it relates. Melissa is asking how much independent research versus supervision would there be for the Race to Zero project? The shape of a PhD, I guess, is that somebody starts off normally needing a fair amount of support, and by the end of it, we're aiming to produce an independent researcher. So that's going to change during the course of the project, but we want you to be in the lead here. We want you to be taking the lead and driving it as early as you can handle that. And of course, by the end of the project, you'll be the person who has the expertise beyond anything we have. So we want you to be in the lead, and we'll provide whatever support you need behind that. The other thing I'll say in terms of exactly what we're covering is we've got the broad project that we've agreed with Team GB, but if in the middle, we need to get that done, of course. But if halfway through year 2 you have a particular interest that goes in a particular direction within that, if we possibly can, we'll support that. That's such a conversation to have, but between the supervisory team, the researcher, and Team GB themselves.
Right. Thank you very much, Simon. A question about Green to Gold. Are there any opportunities or requirements to teach as part of the project? And that's from Lauren.
I'll take that, and John can chip in as head of the department. I think I can say for any of these projects, these are full-time PhDs, not teaching assistant posts. However, we understand you're all early career researchers, and you're probably looking to put teaching experience on your CV. In any university, there is always opportunity for postgraduates to get teaching opportunities, either as guest lectures, leading labs. There will always be opportunities for you to do some work and share your research. We actually encourage you to share your work in seminars and with students. Research, our teaching to be informed by our research. There are absolutely the opportunities to share. John, did you want to add anything to that in terms of opportunities? There's a second question from Lauren as well.
I think you said it all there, Caroline. I mean, we would encourage you to sort of furnish your CV and get some extra academic experience for the future and for any opportunities that might come after this for you. So we wouldn't want it to be too onerous. We wouldn't, we may, it might be a few hours, but not very. There will be some opportunity, but it wouldn't be an onerous level of teaching. But we accept, we would want you to furnish your CV and support that certainly. And also, we would want you to present your work at conferences and events, and promote the word, promote the research. So that would be another good way to develop presentation skills as part of this work. Did you say there was another question?
There's another one from Lauren. I'll just finish off what you were saying there. Any opportunity to enhance your communication skills will be wonderful, because in our role you will be working with Olympic athletes, and we'll be looking for you to present back to Team GB what you're learning and how this can potentially be developed. So yes, any communication opportunities, we'd certainly welcome you to develop your skills.
I did read a question about whether a person could do this part-time, and I don't think that's possible, because this is a 3-year full-time funded PhD, and I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Kirsty, but I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, in our experience, a PhD is really, really intensive, and it's really important that we're going to keep on track to the timescales. There's going to be 3 years of intense research, and there will be a bit of time at the end to write up the thesis. But in our experience, a PhD is a full-time position, and that's why these positions come with a stipend, so you have a living allowance. It's not compatible to be having a role outside of the PhD, even if it is complementary, because a PhD is a wonderful, amazing opportunity. It will take over your life, and there will be ups and downs along the way. It is an intense experience. But we know from experience that it isn't wise to take on additional work alongside it.
I think I can add to that as well, in terms of any of you guys, when you're thinking about what to say interview, we're looking for people who are motivated and will be committed 100% to this project. You don't want to miss an opportunity for someone else to come along and say, yes, 100%, I want to throw myself into this project, if you're talking about other aspects of things that you're interested in as well. So do be aware of that when you're preparing your application.
But don't say 110%, we might doubt your mathematical skills. I'm just going to add actually slightly to what you said, Kirsty, just in case anyone is looking more broadly at PhD projects and is confused. Part-time PhDs do exist and it's perfectly viable for some people, but these particular projects are funded only for full-time, so it's not an option in this particular case.
Good point, Simon. Yeah, there are part-time opportunities available, but not these 3 projects.
Thank you very much, everybody. I've got a question here, 2 that are quite interlinked, about life beyond sport. So we've been asked, how are the participants planned to be recruited? And I guess this also links in as well, will the athletes be from the local region, or will the research be conducted across the entire nation? And that's from Jake.
I think, again, I'm going to ask maybe Charlotte to talk a little bit about that, because the kind of details of how we're going to access the participants has not been totally ironed out. But again, I think we kind of answered that a little bit with the breadth of the sports that are available. But Charlotte, is there anything else that you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, just to say that we are very in a privileged position that we have great access to Olympians, both those current Olympians heading to Tokyo and Olympians from the past. So we have great kind of response rate from them. What we tend to do is we tend to invite people to engage, as well as target individuals from different sports. So we absolutely will be taking this on a national lens. It's really important that we do that, and it's really important that we also take different demographics of athletes. So we want it to be representative of Team GB. We always say Team GB is the most diverse sports team you'll find in the United Kingdom. We want to make sure that this PhD reflects who we are at the core. I think probably just to add that there will be no doubt a blend of virtual and physical, as allowed with any restrictions over the course of 3 years. And we at Team GB, we're headquartered in London, but we have a number of sports obviously located around the United Kingdom, and we will facilitate interactions as required, both sort of making sure that the athlete and the individual who's conducting the research has the best opportunity to connect in the right forum.
Thank you, Charlotte. That's really helpful to explain how that process is going to take place.
Right.
Can I just pick up on a bit of a question that I missed earlier?
Yeah.
Thanks, Nicole. On Race to Zero, somebody was asking how essential is a numerical background. My answer to that is that the person doing this needs to be able to handle large numerical data sets and do calculations on them, and they need to be confident with that. Now, if your undergrad or master's degree doesn't demonstrate that in itself, then you're going to need to convince us in your application, show us evidence that you can do that. And if you can convince us that you can show it by some other route, then that's fine. We're not focused on particular undergraduate subjects, as long as you can satisfy us on that.
Great, thank you. So there is a couple of questions for Life Beyond Sport. So I am sorry just to focus on that for the next few questions, but it's a few that's coming thick and fast. So Life Beyond Sport, they said thank you very much. Steve said thank you very much. A really interesting overview. He had a couple of questions. He said there isn't a research proposal requirement in the application. How should I evidence my understanding of the research methodology? Sorry, my chat keeps moving about the research methodology and particular interest in this project, and what are the logistical aspects of the position, which I think we've already answered. So it's mostly about the methodology and how we can evidence that in his application.
John, do you want to talk about the gains of being a competent qualitative researcher, perhaps, for this question?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. I think for students who are interested in applying for this, it would be really beneficial if they could evidence some understanding or some evidence. They could evidence the fact that they have some experience using a qualitative methodology in the past. So that might be the case that they've used a qualitative approach during their undergraduate thesis or during a master's thesis, for example. They're aware of some of the assumptions that underpin qualitative research, and you could show some evidence that you have an awareness of how some of the processes involved or some of the requirements for collecting like detailed, enriched, and insightful data. I think if you can evidence some of those things, that would be really helpful. But certainly if you can go into some detail and show us that you have some background and some understanding of a qualitative approach, I think that would prove very, very useful.
Great.
And the second part of that question, Nicole, is about the logistical aspects, but I think Charlotte touched on that when she answered the question about access.
That's right. And the other thing, the other questions that we've got, so another 2 questions for Luke and John. Why have you chosen the Foucault Theory, I think it says, and is there a particular focus on enforced or unenforced retirement from sport? That's from Sandy, and we've had a similar question from somebody else about whether it's injury or
Well, I think to answer Sandy's question about the reason that we're using the Foucauldian theory is I think that if you look at sports sociology in general, the use of Foucault has a really strong track record of being helping academics understand the kind of workings of the production of elite athletes and the implications of that process. So I think because the Foucauldian theory in particular is anatomopolitics and ideas about disciplinary power are very, very important and helpful for understanding the lived experience of elite athletes. And therefore, that's why I've used and embraced Foucault for my own retirement studies thus far, and why I think it's going to be a very, very useful heuristic and a good lens for looking at this particular outcome. So that's why we use Foucault. And I think that there was an earlier question from Shona who talked about being on a philosophy and a politics degree, politics, philosophy, and economics that touches on sociological issues, but not directly within sociological theory. I think that to determine whether Shona's degree is compatible for this study, in her application, she would have to demonstrate her competency with, as John said, qualitative research projects, but also the applicability of a social lens. So I can't really give a definitive answer to that question, but I can give a generic one in that you would have to demonstrate with your application that your competencies to engage in a qualitative, social culturally informed research framework. So I think I've answered 2 of the ones that were left behind there for you, Nicole, in trying to do that at once.
No, that's good. Thank you very much for that. So just moving on to another project, we've got one for Race to Zero. Please could you elaborate on the type of IT-driven tools that you mentioned? And that's Laura asking that question.
Thanks, Laura. I think that's probably one for Nishant.
Yeah. Here we are going to develop a decision support system so that Team GB team, they can play with a different combination. As you mentioned, that first we are going to map the different activity so that we can measure. And the back of that decision support system, there will be some calculation so that when the Team GBT expert, they will add the different activity, the decision support system will calculate how much carbon associated with it. And it will also provide some recommendation, different alternative so that they can minimize it. Hope it will help.
Thank you. And we've got another question here for Green to Gold. Would there be opportunity to present at the STC? the student thesis.
Can I take that one, John? Just for anyone who's, I'm sure, not a Hull student, the Student Thesis Conference, what STC stands for, and it's an undergraduate presentation event, like I said, undergraduate students and people on the Talk Masters programme. So it's not actually for people undertaking PhDs. We wouldn't be looking for you to present at that event, because we'd actually be looking for you to present at national and international conference level, to actually share and disseminate the knowledge about how we've been working with Team GB and what's actually going on in terms of these projects. So that's what we'll be aiming for. However, Rosie, if you are a SHES undergraduate student or have been a SHES undergraduate student, the short answer is no, unless you've been a SHES undergraduate student, in which case you can do the keynote presentation as someone who has come through the system. So that would be the only circumstance in which you present at STC. But otherwise, we're looking for you to aim higher than this at postgraduate level. There's another question there, actually. John, did you want to take that one on health equalities?
So what? Sorry, what is the question?
From Jessica. If you want me to read it out so that everybody hears it, it's, do you see the use of local green spaces for social prescribing in this to be linked to place-based approach to physical activity and addressing health inequalities? So we want people to use the green spaces in their local environments, absolutely, and there is some research showing that people in disadvantaged communities who have access to local green spaces perhaps don't use it, and as much as they should. So we'll be wanting to explore the questions why that is and how we can make those local places where people live more accessible and more adoptable to them. So I don't think we'll be using things like satellite tracking or anything like that, although that may be a possibility. The idea is more about co-producing interventions with those people who live in those places to see how we can make those places more amenable, more accessible, and what types of activities we can do in those spaces to encourage that, I think, and then understand the health benefits. Would you like to say anything more about that, Caroline? No, just turn the mic off. So hopefully that answers your question. Thank you. And then back to Life Beyond Sport. We've had a question earlier, which apologies, I did miss this one. It's from Rob. Sorry, no, my chat's jumping about. It's not from Rob at all. It's from Remy. What future career prospects could you get as the PhD researcher from conducting this research study?
I'll answer this one, Luke, if that's okay. I think this particular project could open up a wide number of opportunities. I think first and foremost, it'll open up significant opportunities for those who may wish to go into academia or may wish to go into academia as lecturers or researchers. We think the project itself will lend itself very, very well to the collection of some fantastic data and the publication of some really, really exciting papers, and that'll definitely help the successful applicant get a job in academia as either a lecturer or a researcher. We also think that the project should be of interest to those who may wish to go into athlete support roles after their PhD, supporting the health and well-being of athletes. And that's something that organisations like the English Institute of Sport and Team GB indeed are particularly interested in developing, providing athletes with support throughout their careers and indeed after their careers. So for anyone who might be interested in supporting athletes from a health and well-being perspective, this particular project or PhD could also provide like a huge boost for their career prospects in that respect. So there's then a large number of potential opportunities and avenues that the PhD project like this will open up.
Can I just jump in there as well? Sorry, to say for all of the PhD projects, as well as the main PhD, you will also have the opportunity to take the postgraduate training scheme, which is a whole separate qualification for free. That's our investment in you and your skills and your research skills. But what that means is that for those of you who are not quite sure where you want to go in your career, it's about helping you translate what you're learning. So developing your research skills, developing your communication skills, developing your analytical skills. so that whatever career path you want to take after your PhD, you are equipped to do so. So whether it's something that is directly related to your field of study in your PhD or something else, that there are transferable skills that we will help you develop alongside the skills that you're developing in your PhD. So that's something that the University of Hull takes really, really seriously. Your research skills are hugely important to us. We want to invest in you as an early career researcher, but as somebody who's going out there and may not want to go into academia, may have a different route, and we understand that. So the postgraduate training scheme is there that you take alongside your PhD.
Thank you, Kirsty. So we do have some questions of a similar vein that we'll get Charlotte to answer, and then each individual PhD supervisor. However, there is one question that I've noticed that we haven't answered, just about life beyond sport. So with it being a shorter question, I'll get that one to be answered first, and then we'll go on to the careers aspect. So it was from Matty, just to say how many studies will contribute towards the final thesis, and that was for Luke and John.
As it stands, the study design is one large study with two hopeful samples. One sample that's definite is that there will be a discussion interviewing former Olympians, and we're maybe thinking about the potential of perhaps talking to coaches who have coached athletes who are approaching their retirement. But both those two samples will contribute to one study design that will take place over the 3 years.
Thank you. And I think it'd be really good to answer the question, Charlotte, if I can start with you, that we had, just to say what type of opportunities are there either with Team GB or kind of after the PhD, career opportunities once the research has been submitted.
Thank you, Nicole. I think it's probably just from a top line is worthwhile saying that whilst this is a University of Hull and Team GB PhD cluster, what's really important is that we absolutely will not be doing this in isolation. This is about the high performance system. Team GB is a core component of that, but there are major players, UK sport, all of the institutions, England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, who we work collaboratively with, sporting for the green to gold in particular, and really importantly, the International Olympic Committee. So our aim and our plan is to expose the individuals who are working on these PhDs to the relevant stakeholders. And I think hopefully this evening you've heard from each of the leads that you will be engaged with public bodies, private organisations, as much as ourselves and experts within the system. So not only will you have the opportunity to potentially pursue a career in academia, research or lecturing, as John eloquently put earlier, but I think that there's also opportunity to work within sport generally. And as we always say in sport, lessons that you take from one industry are absolutely translatable to other industries. So it doesn't prohibit you going into other industries and taking the skills, the transferable skills that you've learned through research with you. So I think it's really important that you think about your own interests and your own aspirations over the next few years. And I think we can offer you quite a bit of flexibility, as hopefully you've heard tonight, about how we will shape some of these over the course of the next few months. And I think certainly with the sustainability project, it's an absolutely fascinating area that is exponentially growing in the UK and globally. And for anyone that has had the opportunity to look at the IOC strategy, and you can find that on their website, it's the Agenda 2020+5. Sustainability is at the core of what they're doing. So if you're looking for a role in sport, any sport, and you're interested in sustainability, you can absolutely guarantee that someone out there would love to have someone with this type of background to come and work for them post-games, post-PhD. And we're never ruling out anything at Team GB, because come 3 years' time, this could be absolutely some kind of full-time role for someone. You never know where things will take you in the future. So it's just a great platform for anyone that's really interested in the subject and interested in these disciplines.
I can add one point here, that especially in University of Hull, we will usually treat PhD student as a colleague, because when you are doing undergraduate master, it is different. When you will do the PhD, we will treat you as a colleague, and we will provide you all the opportunity to grow on your own pace in your own area. So that after PhD, you have opened a space. You need to decide what you want to do.
Thank you. And just to any other supervisor, if you wanted to add on to that, and just kind of to sum up, what type of career opportunities might there be for anybody in any of these particular areas? Yep, Simon.
So yes, definitely endorse what Nishant said, that as far as we're concerned, we call people PhD students, but it's not like an undergraduate student. You are a junior colleague, and it's almost like an apprenticeship in that respect. In terms of careers, everything that Charlotte said, the IOC and all the attendant bodies at the national level are moving towards sustainability and moving towards net zero. So there's going to be demand worldwide for people who understand that aspect of things. But also more generally, by the time you finish this project, you're going to be an expert in carbon footprinting, which is applicable in every sector. And you're also going to have good data analytics skills, which is applicable in a very wide variety of careers as well. So it's not just training for one particular specialism. You can be applied in all sorts of directions.
I think the same is true for similar answers for the green to gold. Really, you'll be developing a lot of transferable skills. There'll be careers in public health as practitioners or policymakers. You know, the world is your oyster. And the other thing is you'll be developing a lot of interpersonal skills because of the relationships you'll be building with lots of different professional organizations, you know, people in communities, and those interpersonal skills are invaluable for future careers. And aside from all that, you could just decide to stay in academia and become a professor like me. Although you tend to lose your hair quite quickly. All right,
Luke and John, did you have anything you wanted to add to that, or shall I move on to, there is another question for everybody and one about life beyond sport specifically.
I think a lot's been covered already, Nicole, so let's get to the specific questions.
So the specific question for life beyond sport is, what will be the time frame for conducting the interviews? How many participants would the project be looking to investigate? And that is again from Matty.
Okay, so Matty, as I mentioned, the two potential samples, we're looking between 10 to 15 athletes, and data collection will come in the second year of a 3-year program. So the first year, you'll become familiar with the sports retirement and sociology literature about sports retirement. And once you've kind of understood that and developed an interview guide, then you go into your data collection phase, which will be taking place throughout the second year. And then that will be with 10 to 15 athletes from a range of genders, range of sports, range of ages, enforced, unenforced retirement. There's some questions about that. So again, we're answering 2 birds with 1 stone there. And then also, I think, what was the last bit? How many participants here? 10 to 15 of each sample. So 10 to 15 athletes. And then depending on how things work out with the coaches, potentially 10 to 15 with them as well.
Lovely, thank you very much. And the last question is to, well, it says to all, so I guess anybody could take the floor with this one. Charlotte, it might be a good one for you. Is the aim for the data to be open access once anonymised if appropriate? And that is from Nathan.
Yeah, I think the brackets there are absolutely applicable. You know, appropriate and as we need to share in the sense of what can be valuable to take as case studies for wider precedents. But yes, absolutely, we want to do something here for 3 years that absolutely is translatable and people can access for the benefit of society or the wider sporting network. I think the other thing to say as well is that there's 206 national Olympic committees, and you know, certainly with Race to Zero in particular, we have the ability to create an amazing case study that can be shared globally of how organizations can, within the Olympic movement, can conduct that carbon audit and get the opportunity to achieve Race to Zero. So I think it's definitely worth saying that these PhDs have the opportunity to provide incremental findings as we go. And I think that's something that probably we haven't necessarily stressed, but we should stress, is that Team GB, we don't just want to kind of start this journey and find out 3 years later an outcome. We absolutely want to work very regularly with University of Hull and understand where they're tracking and what lessons we're learning that we can start to implement in initiatives that we have live. And I think that's really important to say, that we want to be able to share as much as we can to benefit the wider sporting landscape and UK society.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't know if anyone else has got anything to add to that. No. Well, that's all of the questions that we've gone through today. So thank you for submitting those. And just some closing comments from myself, really, and from us at the University of Hull. We want to say thank you very much for attending this event this evening and to hear about these projects, and thank you for listening and asking questions as well. Also, thank you to the personal supervisors for being here this evening, and especially to Charlotte at Team GB for joining us as well. We're really excited about these projects and what it will bring for not only for the partnership, but just the change that it will bring as well. The next steps are, if you're interested, you can apply. The applications are open, and the deadline for the applications is the 31st of May. The way that you can apply is visiting our website, which is hull.ac.uk/PhD. And what you'll have to do is just scroll down to the Team GB section there. If you do have any further questions that you don't feel were answered today, or if you just want to speak to somebody, you can email teamgb@hull.ac.uk. Hopefully you can see that on the screen there, and get in touch with us if you have any further questions. Thank you again for joining us today, and we will end the session here. So thank you.